The San Francisco 49ers of the 1980s are one of the most iconic offenses in NFL history. When you look at the talent on that team on the offensive side of the ball, just from a skills position standpoint, you're looking at a piece of NFL history. Hall of Fame quarterback Joe Montana, backed up by Hall of Fame quarterback Steve Young, four-time Pro Bowl halfback Roger Craig, two-time Pro Bowl receiver Dwight Clark, two-time Pro Bowl receiver John Taylor, Hall of Fame and the undisputed greatest receiver of all time, Jerry Rice, halfback Bo Jackson. Wait, what? Bo Jackson never played for the 49ers. But in 1986, the 49ers made a big effort to get the star halfback. This is the story of the time that the 49ers tried to trade for the legend himself, Bo Jackson. Our story begins on April 29, 1986, at the New York Marriott Marquis for the NFL Draft. The 49ers were coming off of a somewhat disappointing 1985 campaign. They were looking to defend their title, having won Super Bowl XIX over the Miami Dolphins the year before. But they went 10-6, failing to win the division and failing to win a playoff game. Because of this, in the 2018 NFL, the 49ers wound up with the 18th pick in the draft. And a lot of people had them pegged to take a halfback. Yes, their 1985 team had two really talented runners in Roger Craig and Wendell Tyler. But Wendell Tyler was going to be 31 years old by the time the season started. He was coming off of a very strong 1985 campaign where he averaged 5.1 yards per carry and scored 6 touchdowns, but there are very few halfbacks that can perform at a high level when they're on the wrong side of 30. Because of this, the 49ers were looking at addressing that halfback position in the 1986 draft to bolster their offense even more. And so, the name that was being floated around as a target was Iowa halfback Ronnie Harmon. Harmon was a dual threat. He could provide an impact in both the rushing and the passing game. In his 1985 senior season with the Hawkeyes, he finished inside the top 10 in both rushing yards and receiving touchdowns. And in his final 2 seasons at Iowa, scored 22 touchdowns from scrimmage and had over 2,900 yards from scrimmage. The 49ers wanted Harmon, and they wanted him badly. However, when the draft rolled around, halfbacks were flying off the board. Bo Jackson went first overall to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but we'll come back to that a bit later. Keith Byars went 10th overall to the Philadelphia Eagles. John L. Williams went 15th overall to the Seattle Seahawks. And then, with the 16th pick in the draft, the Buffalo Bills took San Francisco's target, taking Iowa halfback Ronnie Harmon. I'm sure Buffalo fans hold Harmon in high regard. San Francisco now needed to act, and they decided that there was nobody in the first round worth taking after Harmon. So, they began trading down, and traded out of the first round entirely. After Harmon got taken, the 49ers started wheeling and dealing. They traded their initial pick at 18 overall to the Dallas Cowboys, who took wide receiver Mike Sherrard. Oddly enough, Sherrard would play 4 seasons with the 49ers, and would win 2 Super Bowls with the team down the road. Now, San Francisco had pick number 20. Dallas moved up 2 spots in the draft to take Sherrard, who only played 1 season with the Cowboys, and they gave up a future second-round pick in 1987 to do so. That's highway robbery right there. San Francisco, with pick number 20, still did not want to take anyone in the first round now that Harmon was off the board. They found another trade partner in the Buffalo Bills. Now, Buffalo was looking to take an offensive lineman, as not only were their offensive linemen not particularly good in 1985, but they were also super old. The average age of their 5 starters was over 30 years old. 3 of their 5 starters were over the age of 30. And their youngest starter was left guard Jim Richer, who was 27 years old. But when a bunch of linemen got taken before their pick at 16th overall, the Bills took Harmon. Still, Buffalo was looking to get back up into the first round, and they did just that by trading the 29th pick in the draft to the 49ers in exchange for number 20. This pick turned out to be Will Walford, who was highly successful for Buffalo. He played 7 seasons with the team, starting 102 games, and made it to 2 Pro Bowls as the team's left tackle. But San Francisco was not done yet. they were still looking to get future draft pick ammo and trade back some more. At pick number 29, they still did not like anyone on the board, so they found another trading partner in the Detroit Lions, who traded up to select halfback Gary James out of LSU. James only lasted 3 seasons in the NFL. San Francisco finally drafted someone with pick number 39 when they chose Alabama defensive end Larry Roberts, who lasted 8 seasons with the 49ers, and including the playoffs, had 32.5 career sacks. But with all of their trading back, they acquired the 45th pick in the draft as well, and promptly traded that away to Washington in exchange for a future first-round pick. With all of these trades, the 49ers now had multiple first and second-round picks for the 1987 NFL Draft. They were loading up for that draft class. All of this wheeling and dealing had given them a boatload of high-quality picks to work with. And with those picks, they were looking to get their halfback that they desperately wanted at the start of the draft. No, I'm not talking about Ronnie Harmon. I'm talking about Bo Jackson. The Buccaneers drafting Bo Jackson was without a doubt the stupidest pick in NFL history. I can't think of anything worse. Jackson outright said that he wasn't going to play for the Buccaneers, and he had a very good reason for saying that. Tampa Bay had destroyed his college baseball eligibility. Buccaneers owner Hugh Culverhouse was concerned that Jackson was going to play baseball over football, since he was great at both sports. So he had the genius idea of getting Jackson to visit the Buccaneers facility, say that it was approved by the NCAA, and trick him into going so that he would wind up committing an NCAA violation and be ruled ineligible to play baseball. Yeah, that's a great strategy right there. This plan worked. Jackson visited and subsequently lost his college eligibility, making him unable to play baseball for Auburn during the 1986 season. And understandably, Jackson was very upset about this, and he flat out told Tampa Bay not to draft him because he wasn't going to play for them. Naturally, because this is Tampa Bay in the 1980s that we're talking about, they wound up drafting him. This is the same team that 4 years prior somehow drafted the wrong player, so you can't exactly be surprised if they would find a way to mess this up. However, just because Bo Jackson didn't want to play for Tampa Bay, that didn't mean he didn't want to play elsewhere in the NFL. And San Francisco saw an opportunity here. They had a bunch of picks. They had talent. Remember, Tampa Bay was not a good team in 1985, and they were severely lacking at a lot of positions. They were just 2-14 that season, and halfback was one of a few positions that they didn't seem to need a whole lot of on paper. James Wilder made the Pro Bowl in 1984 and had 1,300 rushing yards in 1985. So the 49ers came to Tampa Bay with a proposal. San Francisco had 2 first-round picks to work with in 1987, as they had their own pick, and they had Washington's pick that they acquired in their wheeling and dealing. Both of those would go to Tampa Bay. The 49ers would also give up the talented but aging halfback Wendell Tyler. And the 49ers would give up some defensive back by the name of Ronnie Lott. Now keep in mind that Lott was not a no-name or an unproven player at this point. He had made it to 4 straight Pro Bowls from 1981 to 1984, and was in the prime of his career. All of that would go to Tampa Bay. 2 first-round picks, Wendell Tyler, and Ronnie Lott. And all the Buccaneers had to do was give up Bo Jackson, a player who flat out said that he was never going to play a down for them. So naturally, the Buccaneers declined. The trade never went through. Now, there have been some really baffling non-trades in NFL history. The first one that pops to mind was the Achilles Smith non-trade, when in 1999, the Saints offered 9 of their draft picks to the Bengals in exchange for their first-round pick, and Cincinnati said no because they wanted to draft Achilles Smith. Naturally, Smith became one of the biggest quarterback busts of all time, and Cincinnati looks incredibly foolish for passing up on 9 picks, including a future first-round pick. And I'm not going to defend that awful decision by the Bengals in the slightest bit. But in fairness, if you think you have your franchise quarterback, I'm not sure if there's a price on that. And at least Achilles Smith didn't come out and say that he wasn't going to play in Cincinnati. But when you have a player who, for good reason, says that he's never going to play for you, you draft him anyway even though you went 2-14 the year before and you don't really need a halfback, and then a team offers you 2 first-round picks for him, plus the best defensive back in football at the time in Ronnie Lott, and another halfback, and you say no, boy, that's a whole new level of incompetence right there. As for the aftermath of this non-trade, Bo Jackson never played for Tampa Bay. He wasn't bluffing. Jackson eventually played 4 seasons from 1987 to 1990 for a different team in California, playing for the Los Angeles Raiders. And before his career-ending injury, he was arguably the most exciting and electrifying player in professional football. San Francisco held on to Ronnie Lott, who made it to 6 consecutive Pro Bowls in the seasons that followed from 1986 to 1991. Lott led the league in interceptions in 1986 and 1991, made it onto the All-1980s first team and All-1990s second team, and got inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame on the first ballot. With the 2 first-round picks that the 49ers had in 1987, they batted .500. They hit on UNC offensive tackle Harris Barden. He played 10 seasons for the team, starting 134 games, being named a first-team All-Pro twice, and getting a Pro Bowl nomination in 1993. But they whiffed when they tried to take it halfback, as they used their other pick on Clemson halfback Terrence Flagler. He only had 145 rushing yards in his 3-year career with the 49ers. Tampa Bay wouldn't make it back into the postseason until 1997. They wouldn't even have a record of .500 or better until 1997. Meanwhile, the 49ers won 3 more Super Bowls before then and had double-digit wins in every single season during that stretch. This is one of those insane hypotheticals to think about. What happens if the Buccaneers do the logical thing and accept the trade? What if they simply use their brain and accept a trade for 2 first-round picks and a Hall of Fame defensive back? Do the Buccaneers remain a laughingstock for the decade before Tony Dungy got there? Do the 49ers get better or worse? Because while they now have Bo Jackson, and an offense with Montana, Craig, Jackson, and Rice might be the best offense in NFL history, they lose a key part of their defense with Ronnie Lott. It's one of those situations that, unfortunately, we'll never really know the answer to. But for a brief moment in 1986, it looked like Bo Jackson would be a San Francisco 49er. And how much the football world would have changed because of it, well, only Bo knows.